Welcome to the Women's Hoop Show. It is time for the long-awaited mailbag episode, the one you didn't know you needed, but you're glad that it's here. And I'm glad that you're here to listen to it. I'll be answering as many questions as I can. And if yours didn't make it in this time, don't worry. There's always a chance in a future episode. And if you'd like to get in on the next one, just email us at women'shoops@odyssey.com to be a part of the conversation. I have loved hearing from you guys. But before we dive into your questions, I have to start with a quick reaction to last night's Commissioner's Cup games. Just a short one. We'll do a full preview of the Cup final on next week's episode. But stick around, because after the mailbag, I have a special treat for you guys. An interview with LA Sparks guard Kelsey Plum, where we talk about her transition to the team and her red hot start to the season. But before we get into that, let's dive in. Let's hoop. All right, you guys. I don't even know where to start. First of all, if you were able to somehow watch all of the games last night, we're recording this on Wednesday, good for you. If you have multiple televisions, if you had multiple screens up, it was hard for me. It was really, really hard. I tried to focus in on some of the games that were high priority for Commissioner's Cup championship expectations. We kind of talked about last week's episode, all the different scenarios that could have went down. And that's what I was focusing on. So I was watching the New York Liberty and Atlanta Dream game, which was incredible. It lived up to the hype. For sure. The Atlanta Dream came within, a three-pointer attempt by Ryan Howard that would have tied it. But the Liberty were down by 17 in the third quarter, their largest deficit of the season. I thought for sure, Atlanta, wow, they're going to the Commissioner's Cup championship. Who would have thunk it? And then New York was like, ooh, actually, no. We're going to still come back and win this on a 36-15 run to take the lead. It was wild. I knew it was going to be hard for Atlanta to defeat a New York Liberty team at home, but it's also hard to defeat a New York Liberty team where Sabrina Ionescu has another 34-point game, back-to-back 34-point games for her. And the Liberty, they move on to 10-1. The Dream move on to 8-4. And now neither of them are in the Commissioner's Cup championship because the Indiana Fever took care of business against Connecticut. But wow. Let's talk about this game real quick, because the Fever won 88-71. And like I said, I didn't watch this game. It was happening at the same time because I knew that the Fever were going to win. It was going to take a heroic effort for the Connecticut Sun to beat an Indiana Fever at home with the momentum that they have, with Caitlin Clark back, all the things. But woo! Things got chippy. As soon as I opened Twitter, I saw all of the videos and all of the clips and highlights of what was going down. The main clip was Sophie Cunningham, Jacy, Sheldon, Lindsay Allen, all getting ejected with like 46 seconds left. Cunningham had a very hard foul on Sheldon when they were already up 17 points. But it was brewing all game long. That's what I heard. That's what people said. It started in the third quarter. That's when Caitlin Clark, Marina Mabry, Tina Charles were all assessed technical fouls. Jacy Sheldon was assessed a flagrant 1 foul. Not only does this go back to earlier in the game from the huge scuffle at the end of the game, but you have to remember, Jacy Sheldon, Caitlin Clark, this goes back to Big Ten. This is Ohio State, Iowa. They have beef that is long-standing, veteran, retro beef that still comes up when they play each other. It was a lot. We're going to talk about in the mailbag. You guys had multiple questions about referees. So we're going to dive into more of the refs' decisions during this game. I think that's what people had issue with, was why wasn't this a flagrant? Why was this a technical? How did they kind of assess during those reviewing periods? So we're going to talk about all that and kind of break all that down. But the Indiana Fever, they won 88-71. That's what they needed to do to secure their place in the Commissioner's Cup Championship final. Again, Autumn and I, we thought it was for sure going to be the Liberty Minnesota Lynx, but it is the Indiana Fever representing the East. So we will break all that down and what that matchup is going to look like in next episode. But more people played last night, okay? So the Minnesota Lynx and the Aces had a matchup, and I think the one thing that I really wanted to flag from this is that Napheesa Collier left with 7 minutes remaining in the third quarter with a back issue. She was kind of limping towards the tunnel. She is not only leading the number one team in the standings, but she is leading the MVP race. So we really hope that she's okay. I haven't seen anything come across my social media so far since this morning of any report if she's going to miss multiple days or if it is a serious injury. So that's going to be a developing story that we watch there. Diamond Miller was huge in that matchup, had 12 points off the bench, and the Aces were in it. They were doing super well. Jackie Young left for a little bit too with an injury. The Aces were doing pretty solid, and I was kind of surprised. But then the second half happened, and the Lynx outscored them 46-23 to get that win. So, yeah, the Minnesota Lynx did what they needed to do to be able to secure the West spot for the Commissioner's Cup. They won that 76-62. Another one is the Dallas Wings. Hello. They got a win over the Golden State Valkyries, 80-71. Paige Beckers had 20 points in front of her former coach, Gino Auriemma, and her former teammate, Caitlin Chin. That was cute. Arike also had 19 points, but Dallas in the win column. It's about time. That's nice. Also, Dejanay Carrington came off the bench. They kind of rotated some of their starting lineups, so that's going to be interesting to see if they continue to do that moving forward. And then the last game of the night that was not competing with any other time was Seattle Storm and the LA Sparks, and the Storm demolished the Sparks. Half of the Sparks team wasn't even there. Kelsey Plum didn't play. Odyssey Sims is still out. It was just kind of like a pickup team against a very good Seattle Storm team. So they won 98-67, and Gabby Williams set a franchise record with 8 steals. So Seattle Storm really took care of business. A lot of games. I don't recommend for the WNBA to keep putting every single team on at the same time. I wanted to watch all these games, but a lot of great basketball that was played last night. All right, so we're going to step aside real quick, but when we come back, we are going to dive into some of your mailbag questions. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Women's Hoop Show, and it's mailbag time. So you guys have sent so many great questions. First, thank you for sending your questions, trusting me to answer them. Some of them I couldn't do. You know, it was like, fix the Aces. I'm sorry. I don't have a magic wand. I wish I could. But we dive into some of these overarching topics that you guys sent in from the email, through my Instagram, through TikTok. So let's get in. So this is one that came in this morning, kind of going into everything that happened last night. This is from Brianna. So we'll start with this one. Dear Jordan, first, as a longtime fan of the W and a fan of the show, I want to thank you for your dedication to women's hoops. I'd love to hear you and your co-hosts' hot takes, and you entertain and enlighten all of us listeners, viewers, with your hoops roots history lessons. I appreciate you. Second, the girls are fighting. Now, that's nothing new, but something about these scuffles feels different this season. Sure, the game is changing. The league is rapidly expanding. We're losing legends to retirement in consecutive seasons. Rising stars are household names, etc. Still, I didn't expect the growing pains to actually be painful. Some of these fights feel like they come with baggage, and I don't think we're fully unpacking those bags. Something beyond the obvious is going on, and I can't put my finger on it. Is it the increased interest in the league? Is it all the new coaches? Do the refs need to tighten up? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for using your platform to center women and women's hoops. Brianna. Woo! Brianna, first, thank you so much for those kind words. I do think the girlies are fighting. I mean, just in this past week, we have whatever happened in the Indiana and Connecticut game. And then we also have hair pulling in Connecticut and Chicago. Okay, maybe it's Connecticut. Maybe Connecticut is the underlining factor here. But the girlies are fighting. And, you know, I was thinking about this in multiple layers. But one, specifically, you know, when Angel Reese gets her hair pulled and she's kind of gets another technical, and this is kind of multiple games now where she's getting technicals, I did have that reaction of like, I hope she's okay. Like, I hope that everything is going on outside of basketball and everything else, just all the pressures, all the noise, like isn't getting to her where she's kind of lashing out on other players. I hope not. But it does feel like a little bit that we kind of all need to gather around and do a little group therapy session to kind of see what all this baggage is. I want to say, I was just interviewed for The Guardian, did a story on the physicality this season, and if it is more than other seasons before, if it's substantially more than anything else. I don't think so. I think that the WNBA and women's basketball has always been a very physical game. I think that still there are these underlying ideals that, you know, I wrote a book on the history of women's basketball. It goes back to the 1800s, the early 1900s, where people are like, women shouldn't sweat too much. Like, the court was divided into thirds and you couldn't go across your section because you would perspire too much for a woman. Like, there's still, I think, these underlying themes that women have to be very prissy and sit pretty and not fight each other. But sometimes if you're going to talk a lot of mess, if you're going to get in my face, we're gonna fight. Like, that's how it is. And I don't know if there is a comparison of fights in the WNBA versus the NBA versus another sport, a men's sport. But this season in particular, I think overall the vibes are off. We talked about this in the last episode, how all these 30-point performances was such a breath of fresh air because it felt like a lot of injuries, a lot of concussions, a lot of scuffles, technicals. Things have just been a little odd. And I don't know exactly what that is. But I do want to point to one thing that was mentioned in here was the referees. And do the refs need to tighten up? And that is something that goes into what multiple people kind of submitted and going into kind of the next question and where we can dive deeper into the refereeing, because I think that is something that even carrying over from the finals last year, years prior, it has kind of always been a thing with the WNBA and referees. But this year, the referees are in the hottest seat possible. Their seats are on fire. So here's another question to ask specifically about the referees that I think carries over from Brianna's question. This is from Scott. Hi, Jordan. Every week I look forward to Wednesday when your show comes out, so please keep them coming. I watch a lot of WNBA games and I am constantly frustrated by the refs. In my opinion, they would be much better if they would adhere to one simple rule. If you don't see it, don't call it. This may seem obvious, but it's pretty common to see replays in which a called foul didn't actually happen. This means that the ref obviously didn't see the foul because it didn't happen. I can only assume that the refs call fouls that must have happened, in quotes, or they impute a foul because they see some action that they think is the result of a foul. Do you agree with this assessment? If so, how do we get them to hear and follow this simple statement? If you don't see it, don't call it. Thanks for the show. Respectfully, Scott. I also got something from Caitlin. I would be curious to know if the fouls this year versus last, refs been crazy this year. Sent that on Instagram. So again, comparing from year to year, I think it is very much a theme with WNBA for the referees to kind of be scrutinized. And this goes back to me, and what I question is like, how did these referees get here? That's always my first thought. I think a lot of assumptions are like, are these referees that tried to be in the NBA, but they kind of landed in the WNBA? Are these college referees? Like, where did these referees come from? And there is a great article that I implore all of you to go read. Noah Dazell from SB Nation wrote a great story about this. And it was essentially, the title is How Referees Are Scouted and Brought to the WNBA. It talks about and breaks down all these different areas of how referees kind of got here, what they did to get here, how they earned their spot, and kind of myths around refereeing. And that is something that is super interesting to me because we're not going to go on the call, go on the floor and say, referee, you're fired. Let's bring someone else in immediately. We're all refs, right? When we're in the heat of the game, when I play, I am the worst. I don't agree with any ref ever. Refs hate me in my rec leagues. So I'm not the person to be like, this is what they should fix. It's a referee. I think it's one of the hardest jobs. You literally go to your job. You know you're going to get yelled at. You know you're going to be told that you're doing a bad job. So it's a tough profession. But in this article, Noah, she interviewed Monty McCutcheon and Sue Blanche. So these are two referees that have a lot of experience. McCutcheon was an overseas referee development as the senior vice president of referee and training at the NBA and was previously an NBA referee for almost 25 years. Blanche was the vice president of WNBA referee performance and development and was a WNBA referee for 20 years. And she was also an NCAA referee for women's basketball for 18 years on top of that. So first thing that kind of stuck out to me from this article was that all NBA and WNBA refs start in the G League. Like that is kind of their training ground. And then, they do intensive NBA training to become these NBA and WNBA refs. Not all of them come from NCAA D1 when they are being scouted. Some of them come from the national intramurals. Some of them come from high school, and they are kind of all brought together as like, you guys are the best refs. You guys are going to be trained, and you start in the G League. One of those I think is very interesting is like G League basketball is very different from the WNBA basketball. So if that's kind of your training ground, it's a little different. All of those things are different. High school is different. College is different. All of that is different. And one thing that, Sue McCutcheon said as a viewer, because one of the questions is, how is the rapid growth of the WNBA changing how reffing is done? And she kind of flipped it and said it's for the viewer. If the viewer is used to only watching college basketball, refereeing play in college from the WNBA is very, very different. And so that might be a little bit of whiplash for viewers if they are not used to that. And so it's not necessarily that they're doing different rules or changes per se, but just the watching experience is very different. The play style is very different from college to the pros. But she also said that referees are constantly behind as players get more fancy footwork, as they add more things to their bag. Referees are kind of playing catch up to some of those things as making new rules as they go along. So I thought that was really interesting. And then another thing that I thought was interesting, which kind of goes back to last night's game, goes back to the finals where Cheryl Reeve was calling out the refs by name, is the review process. So there's this whole idea that, if you're a ref and you make a bad call, that there's no repercussions for that. What are you doing? What is the pushback if you got the call wrong? So taking it back to last night, where there were technical fouls assessed, there were flagrant fouls assessed. Why did the refs get to those calls, and how did they get to those calls? So Chloe Patterson from the Indy Star, she interviewed the crew chief, Ashley Gloss, at the Connecticut Sun at Indiana Fever game, June 17th. So the first question, why was Jacy Sheldon's foul upgraded to a flagrant 1? Ashley Gloss, in the judgment of the officials, the foul by Sheldon was unnecessary. The contact to Caitlin Clark's face. Furthermore, there was a wind-up, an impact, and the contact to the face carries a potential for injury. Next question, what went into deciding Marina Mabrey should get a technical instead of something more severe, like an ejection? The answer, the contact made by Mabrey did not rise to the level of an ejection. Additionally, it did not meet the criteria for a flagrant 2 penalty foul. Why did Caitlin Clark get a technical foul? After the foul by Sheldon, Clark reacted in an unsportsmanlike manner towards Sheldon. Why did Tina Charles get a technical foul? Tina runs towards Clark in an unsportsmanlike manner and taunts her. I think that's really funny because when you watch the video, it looks like Tina Charles is the one that pushed her, but you could see her push her hands up oh, I didn't touch her. But the intent was unsportsmanlike, I guess. Question, in the fourth quarter, why was Sophie Cunningham's foul upgraded to a flagrant 2? Ashley Gloss, we felt that the contact by Cunningham was unnecessary and extensive. So it also goes on to why did Jacy Sheldon and Lindsay Allen get technicals? So all of that, right? The refs are making those real-time reactions. I heard it was like a 10-minute review session during all of these technicals assessed throughout the game. But the question is, and one question that keeps coming up is, okay, if they get that wrong, are there any repercussions from that? This is their job. If it's bad, what happens? So in this article, going back, the referees say that there is a constant online feedback from other refs. This is something that I didn't know. It's called the Referee Engagement Performance System, called REPS. And every single WNBA game is downloaded into this platform with analysis. The Department of Refereeing can also create playlists of calls like flagrant fouls for educational purposes and showcase to referees which calls they got right and which calls they got wrong. And if they do get it wrong, because they're receiving hundreds of feedback through this, which I'm sure the refs last night, if they opened that reps, they got a lot of feedback. They could also get financial penalties for getting these wrong. Referees can be subject to fines when certain mistakes are made. However, refs will only face fines for making mistakes classified as misapplication of rules rather than typical blown calls. So some examples of finable mistakes include not allowing a team to challenge when they had a challenge available, awarding a team an incorrect number of free throws, incorrect fouls, out of bounds, are finable offenses. Are not finable offenses. So I think there's just this idea that there is no reparations or anything that could happen, repercussions for referees. And I just think this is super interesting. You should read that full article about refereeing, but the refs are not doing great, but I hope that they are getting feedback so that they can keep getting better. But I think this going back to, is it more than last year? Is it more than years before? I think more eyes watching the game has scrutinized the league that we saw from years past. Nobody was really talking about charter flights until everybody was on game that there was no charter flights. I feel like it's the same way with the referees. Everybody is now watching them and it's okay, we got to do something. We got to fix. They're bad. They're doing that. So I think this is an overall work in progress. But I think last night's games and this week's games of the physicality, the fights, have really okay, we need to tighten up the ship here. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, so the next one is from Linda, and it says, is it true that players don't get paid during the WNBA finals? What? And another question from Katie, is it true that WNBA players don't get paid for the playoffs? What is the compensation that they get for the playoffs? Is that part of the upcoming CBA to change that? So this is a great question, because this is something that I personally wanted to dive into when the now famous Stud Buds Twitch live stream between Courtney Williams and Natisha Heidemann of the Minnesota Lynx go on live, and they are just chatting away on all different topics, all different players. But in one live stream, they mentioned how, we don't get paid for the playoffs. And they kind of were talking about it, and they're like, I don't think you guys know that. And they kind of said, what was it? We got like $3,000 for making it to the championship last year. That seems bananas to me. So I wanted to dig deeper, and I looked up the CBA to see what the ruling is behind that, because I wanted to know if that was accurate, if their memory served them right, and what it looked like. So in summary, and also, by the way, the CBA is online. You can go to the WNBPA's website and you can pull up the document, and the CBA is there. So you can always search things if you have questions. But it is true that their salary and everything that they make during the season stops at the regular season. For the postseason, they earn merit bonuses based on how far they go in the playoffs. So I'm going to kind of run through the list real quick of what those bonuses look like. But again, this is the bonus. It's not this plus your salary. So a WNBA champion, so the New York Liberty last year, they got $11,356 per player. All of these are per player. The championship runner-up, which was the Minnesota Lynx, Courtney Williams said that they got $3,000. They actually got $5,678 per player. If you're eliminated in the third round, $2,839. Eliminated in the second round, $1,803. Eliminated in the first round, $1,136. That is not a lot of money to make the playoffs, but here we are. Then it goes into individual awards, where the MVP gets a bonus for $15,000. And if you make the first team, you get $10,000. If you make all WNBA second team, you get $5,000. Sixth Woman of the Year, $5,000. Defensive Sportsmanship Rookie of the Year, Most Improved, those are all $5,000 bonuses. If you also go to the All-Star game, if you get MVP at the All-Star game, you get $5,000. If you're just an All-Star game participant, you get $2,500. 3-point contest winner, $2,500. Skills competition, $2,500. So defensive team, $1,500. Rookie team, $1,500. If you are just participating in the All-Star game 3-point contest, you get $1,000. So those are the bonuses, but I don't think any of us realize that your salary kind of stops, even though you're still playing games. I guess your salary is for the regular season only. And there's also a stipulation for those playoff teams that you kind of have to be on the team for majority of the season. So we think about all these hardship contract players, all of that. You have to be on the team for at least 2/3 of the season to get this type of bonus. So the more you know. But any other CBA questions specifically, look up the CBA. You learn a lot when you dive through it. All right? Moving on to the next one that I had a lot of fun diving into this one, but I got multiple questions about coaches. And one from Electric Lady 910 on Instagram. Do you think Nola would be better coaching fit for the Dallas Wings? Also, another question, can you fire a coach mid-season? I got a lot of those variations of how can the Dallas Wings do this? And I just had to laugh. And I also had to go on Basketball Reference, put on my glasses, and get to work because I was curious if this has happened. Typically in the WNBA, they don't fire coaches mid-season. You usually have a really long leash, and I think that's why we keep bringing up Teaspoon over and over, because she only got one season. So I went through all of the teams, right? All of the WNBA teams to see if there have been coaches that have been fired mid-season. My findings in summary were that typically it's like the third or fourth season, that if you're having losing seasons, then like that fourth season you get fired midway through, or that third season if it's the end of your contract. That was most recently with Marianne Stanley with the Indiana Fever. She was 9 games in. She had a cumulative record of all those seasons of 14-49, and they let her go because she was in the last year of her contract, and they just had an interim head coach the whole time. But typically, it doesn't happen. Like Derek Fisher was let go in 2022 after going 5-7. He was fired, but that was his 4th season. And he had one of those was a winning season. So I had to look deeper into if it's your first season, because Chris Koklanis is in his first season. To get fired midway through your first season would be a little unprecedented, but it has happened. So for the Aces, back when they were the San Antonio Silver Stars, first-year head coach, 2004, D. Brown, he resigned after going 6-20, a little more than mid-season. After going 6-20, he said, I hope that they can find someone to do a better job than what I'm doing. I also feel like I don't think Kurt Miller's going to fire him. So if Chris Koklanis resigns, that's maybe a different story. Also, I found it interesting that in the WNBA's first season in 1997, 2 head coaches were fired mid-season. Like the very first season, they're like, gotta go. Monarchs coach and GM, also my dear friend, Mary Murphy. She started 5-10. They fired her. And then the Sparks coach, Linda Sharp, was 4-7. And they let her go. Yeah. It's not often, is what I'll say. But I don't know if Wings fans, if that's good news for you, or if it's like you're probably, unfortunately, going to have to get through this season. Nola Henry, though, if they were to fire or resign for Koklanis, Nola Henry is a super amazing interim head coach to fill that spot. But we'll have to wait it out. It's okay. You'll get there. You'll get there. Okay, let's wrap it up with some quick ones, some rapid fire questions that were sent that I just thought were really good questions I wanted to answer super, super quickly. This one was from Aunt Xavier, and he asked, what do you miss about playing basketball? And I love this question. I miss so many things about playing basketball. I miss being in the gym for hours. I miss my whole schedule revolving around getting shots up and like nothing else. I thought I was so busy in college, but no. I miss the competition. I miss being in shape. I had abs once upon a time. That was nice. I miss those. But overall, I think I just miss like the daily grind of playing hoops, and then the little rewards that you find from your practice or working on something and like something really clicking and having that aha moment during a practice, during a game, during a drill, where something that you've just been working on for so long just clicks. And I think there are some glimpses of that in adult regular life, but not as much. So I definitely miss that. But I miss a lot of things about basketball. I miss it. Another one, the last one, is from hi_K8_N. This is from TikTok. I just got Candace Parker's new book, and I met her and got a signed copy. Love that for you. Have you read the book, and what player team would you want to read a tell-all book from? Love this question, especially because I'm such a book girly. I have not read Candace Parker's book yet. I've heard great things. I want to read it. It is in the queue. Um, a couple answers to the second question. What team would you want to read a tell-all book from? One, I want to read Candace Parker when she talks about that 2019 Sparks team with Derek Fisher benched her in the playoffs, and they could have totally won that game. Me and my husband were at that game in Long Beach, and we thought she was hurt. We thought something was happening, and he just benched Candace Parker. I really want to know what she thought about that, because it was all written all over her face, but I'm sure she could write it better. And then now I want to read a book about the 2024 Seattle Storm team. Like, what happened? What happened last year? And none of us feel like we know. We don't know anything. And I think Jewel Lloyd needs to write the book. And it could just be about that one season. And I would read it up, all the way up. So yeah, I think those are two of the books that I would, or two of the team's stories that I would want to read for sure, with inside information. Okay. Wow. That was fun. Thank you guys so much for submitting your questions for a mailbag. I also said that all the ones I didn't get to, or some of the ones that maybe we skipped over, I'll do videos on my social media about those and dive deeper. But thank you for giving me homework. It was so much fun. I loved all the assignments. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we are going to hear from Kelsey Plum, an interview I did with her a little bit ago on my other show, She's Got Next with Jordan Robinson, and you'll hear from Kelsey on the other side. Today's guest is Kelsey Plum, guard for the WNBA's Los Angeles Spark, and she's got next. Kelsey, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for doing this. I love how this is like fresh off of practice, real interview. We appreciate you.
I know. Thanks for working with me.
Of course. So let's talk about the season, because a few weeks into your first season with the LA Sparks, you are on a tear, but you've also been playing with so much joy, and it has been a joy to watch. Where has that been stemming from?
Yeah, I think the last couple games, it was like a little bit down. It was tough. The league didn't help us with our 7 games in 14-day schedule to start us off. But no, it's been good. Honestly, just having a ton of fun. Everything's very new, so just trying to take it all in and, just enjoy the process. Rebuilding and building something new is not easy. And so just trying to, appreciate the hard days and know that there's better days to come.
Love it. Well, leading into the season, you made a blockbuster decision to leave Las Vegas, join the Sparks, also to not play an Unrivaled. But what did you do in the off season, physically and mentally, to get ready for this new role in LA?
Yeah, I took a lot of time. I got away from everyone. I was just really very intentional on just who I surrounded myself with, and just getting a chance to reset physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. The last 3 years have been a lot for me, professionally and personally, and a lot of times it can kind of wear on you. So I knew I just needed time. I needed time to rest and recover, and then also time to build myself back up. I knew that it was going to be a very brutal season physically on me, and it's been good. I've learned a lot in the last couple weeks of just trying to figure out how 40 minutes on the Aces is very different than 40 minutes on the Sparks.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure it out, and that's who I am. I'm always going to adapt and grow, and I'll perform when it matters.
You've always been able to adapt, but I'm so happy that you took that rest and that time for yourself, because that's so important. And talking about more of your role on this team, we know you can score. We know you can shoot it. We also know last season at the 2 guard position, you were also dishing out those assists. This year, scoring is up, assists is up, vibes are up. How would you describe your role on this team?
For me, I'm just trying to make the right decision and trying to make the right play every time. And, having the ball in my hands a lot more, I have a lot more opportunities to do that. I'm not always going to get it right, but my goal is to get it right more than I get it wrong. And, I can make plays. I'm a playmaker. I'm not just someone that comes off and just shoots the ball. That's never who I've been, and I wanted to be able to show that at a new level. And I'm just excited to continue to have the opportunity to get better at it. And by the end of the season, I would very much expect me to be in top 5 in assists.
Oh, yeah. Claim it.
Yep.
It's stamped there now. I believe it. I believe that it can happen. And it's also a really young team, too, which is something that, your role as a leader probably has grown. But how have you been just encouraging these youngins to grow through their mistakes, to grow through it, and impart your wisdom onto them as a vet?
Yeah, I think from what you said, like my energy is always something that's infectious and just trying to empower and encourage. It's hard. This is a miss or make league, so a
Mhm.
lot of times you can make a great play and then someone misses the shot. That's just what happens. So as long as we're taking the right shots and making the right plays, the percentages are going to go up. And like you said, we're young, and so a lot of times when you're young, you have to kind of like learn by fire. I'm just always going to be super encouraging and keep believing in them because I do.
Yes, and it shows. I mean, especially in this type of league when you you have all these games and you're like, "Hey, you're going to learn because we have another game in like a day or
Yeah.
two." So you kind of can't dwell on it. But you've also been dishing out some assists off the court too. Please tell us the story behind how you hooked up your rookie, Sarah Ashley Barker, with some fresh Sabrinas, because this is my favorite thing ever.
Yeah. So it's funny because a lot of people were like, "Oh, you should have hooked her up a long time ago with Under Armour," and I'm like, "You guys don't understand the freaking dinosaur league policies on shoes." But yeah, so basically, Sarah's been just wearing the same pair of shoes since she wore like I think her junior year of college, and they're old and they used to be pink, but they look like a flamingo that lost their pink. It was
Oh
rough.
no,
And so
faded.
finally, yeah, as I got to know her, I was just like, SA, like, what can we do for you? And I guess she had ordered shoes, but got lost in the mail or whatever.
Oh gosh.
And yeah, and so I was like, what shoes do you like? She said, I like the Sabrinas. I was like, great, let me call Sabrina. So I just texted Sab and I was like, yo, my teammate needs some shoes, like hook us up. And she was awesome. She came through with like the best colorways, sent them to my house. Um, and she was like, "Hey, I really like her. Like, she's a Sarah Ashley Barker fan." So, um, it was cool to see her just like respond in such like great fashion, and that's just a perfect example of the W, just kind of showing up for each other.
So cool. That is like the best thing that could have happened to her, especially as a rookie, getting some fresh kicks from Sabrina herself. That's
That's what I'm saying.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, dang, and the colorways like you can't get those in the store, like so it was
Fresh.
cool. Yeah, it was cool.
Yes. And the rule is you have to wear Nike unless you're signed from another place, right? Is that the rule? That's
That
why
and
she.
you had to have signed before training camp started. So like
Oh my God.
you couldn't have, for example, like, hey, you want to sign for Under Armour right now, Jordan, and you're playing on the
Mm.
Sparks, like that's just the league rule. And yes, you're required to wear Nike. Exactly.
Okay. So that puts it in perspective where we know you would have laced her with some Under
Come on.
Armours
Come
way
on.
before. Long
Way
before.
before.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Thank you for clearing that up. But also, I wanted
Yes.
to talk about too, because I feel like you have been partial to the youngins of the league because of what you do with your dog class, which is a camp to help college players transition to the WNBA. What's been the feedback that you've received from dog class recently, especially from the most recent people and players who have gone who are now in the league and doing well?
Yeah, honestly, it's been awesome. I think the best part is watching someone um, just get confidence from it and
Hmm.
feel like they are empowered. And I think a lot of times, everyone knows how tough the W is. Well, a lot of people that are in it know, and that transition is very difficult, and it's kind of a sink or swim thing, and there's not a lot of structure or support in that. And so I just my mentality was going back when I was in their shoes. I wish there was just a lot more either wisdom, advice, preparation, opportunities. So I did have a better transition,
Hmm.
and just seeing like Sanaya Rivers, right, and just how much confidence that brought her. Or I know, unfortunately, Georgia's out this year, but I know that's helped her a ton. And even the players that go back to college, they have a lot more confidence because they've played against the best players in the country for a weekend, and they're like, oh, wait a second, like I'm really that good, and I can hang with these people. And I think that's pretty much the point of it. Is like when you go, it's like, hey, like I'm guarding Kelsey. I'm in the same drills with her. Like I can do this. And a lot of times
Mhm.
it's just like the reinforcement that you need to go out and then be able to be yourself.
But then also, I'm sure it's things like, okay, if I'm going back to college, this is what I need to work on to be able to come into the league to make an impact right away, right?
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
that if you have that opportunity to get better while you're in college, so when you come into the league, you're more prepared. That's just a big blessing. And we're just trying to give them nuggets to take away, particularly like how to take care of your body and
Mhm.
how important strength training is. And like there's these grown women playing in your position. You have to take the weight room very seriously. Your conditioning is really important because it affects shots made and decisions made and your defense and all the things. And so I just being able to expose them to like, whoa, this is the type of pace I need to play with, and this is how a professional like lifts and conditions. And
Mhm.
I think it's just super helpful. And I've seen people go back and shine in college, and it just makes me smile.
I know it is. And I know they wear that dog class with honor. You should get them like patches. Do they have like
They do. They
Letterman
get a Letterman
jackets that
jacket.
you
They
oh,
get a Letterman jacket, and they get patches on it. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
absolutely. Okay, that's amazing. Yes, they are wearing those patches with honor for sure. Thinking back to when you were drafted in Las Vegas, or it was San Antonio Silver Stars back then, and you were a key piece in creating that championship culture there, winning back-to-back championships 2022, 23. But now in Los Angeles, there is a historic championship culture in LA and an aura of championship past. How important is that to you to bring that back and to hopefully hang another banner in crypto?
Yeah, it's so funny. People talk about championships, and most of the time, the people that talk about them have never won them. Not saying you, but just in general, like
Hey, you're right.
the amount of what goes into winning games is it's extremely difficult, right? And
Yeah.
you have to sustain a level of diligence for a long period of time, and that takes time, right? Because diligence is really just a skill that you build. That's why you see, and I tell people all the time, I'm like, the best teams in our league, the New Yorks, the Minnesotas, the Vegas, the Seattles, that core's been together for 4 or 5 years, right?
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
just takes time. It really does. And so yeah, the opportunity to come to LA and build something is the reason that I jumped at it. And I think that just trying to be patient with myself and continue to stack bricks.
I love it. Well, you grew up in Poway, and Sparks are pretty much the closest pro WNBA team to you growing up. Did that play a part in wanting to come play for LA? Did you root for them growing up?
I mean, I definitely was went to some Sparks games growing up. I wouldn't say I was like a Sparks fan. I was just really more a fan of basketball. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, it is cool to be able to see my family. My brother's a fireman. He lives in Oceanside, so he's come
Oh
to a
my
lot of
gosh.
games. My dad, my mom. Um, so it's been definitely a big blessing, and I'm thankful for that. But to be honest, it wasn't like the key factor in my decision.
I love that. Okay. Another thing I'm just curious about for a professional athlete coming to a new city like yourself, how do you make those transitions that maybe we aren't privy to? Like, you would have to find a new grocery store, you have to find a new eyebrow lady. Like, how are you making those transitions?
That's a good reminder. I need to get my eyebrows threaded immediately. Um, yeah, you know what? I've been doing this long enough in terms of like I was still in that gap of like going overseas.
Mhm.
Um, and we were in San Antonio, then we went to Vegas. I played in Turkey, so I was going back and forth. Um, and so I think I've moved around enough to kind of be a little bit of a nomad. So I never really struggled with it that much. I was fortunate to find like a great place to live, and you know I'm like I have a reverse commute because people are like, oh, the traffic. I'm like, honestly, the traffic's been amazing. I don't want to jinx myself, but it's been
That's so
amazing. So
nice. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
so honestly, I just feel very fortunate to have a ton of support, and my family's been crucial, just like helping me move in and things like that. So I mean, I would just say I feel really blessed and super supported here.
That's super helpful. And then you can always get recommendations from family, so you can trust their recommendations better.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay, one last thing. I wanted to talk about, you getting your jersey retired over this past offseason at the University of Washington. Talk about what that moment meant for you to have everyone there, your family, everyone there's barking, like just celebrating you as that jersey goes up in the rafters. What did that mean?
It was very special. These days with retirement jerseys, they like retired a year after you leave. And maybe I'm old school, but I just was like, like I had
I
told
feel
them,
that.
I told him 3 years ago, I said, I'm going to win a gold medal in Paris and then we can think about it. Like that was like my uh, ultimatum. Like, no way,
Yeah.
like I wanted to go back when I'm like 50 and do it, but I guess you can't do that anymore. It was really special though. And just very proud to be a Husky in Seattle. Just what a great basketball environment that is. And I just felt very loved. They went above and beyond. They had like bobbleheads and T-shirts, and I even apologized to the coach. I think they played Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
Washington did, and I just went up to the Purdue coach. I was like, "Coach, I'm sorry that you did not deserve all this hoopla because they're in a no-win situation." You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah,
great.
yeah. That's
You know what I
tough.
mean? Like, how am I supposed to coach in all this madness? They're stopping the game every 10 minutes. You know what I mean? The whole thing. So she was like, it's okay. She was really gracious. So, anyways, I had a great time and I just felt very loved. And there was a lot of people that helped me
Mm-hmm.
be able to be successful. And so just being able to thank them and see them on that day, that was most special to me.
It's amazing. Tim forever. I love it. Well, congratulations with that. Good luck in the rest of the season. Thanks so much for taking the time, Kelsey.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an update. Your support means the world. And if you're feeling generous, leaving a quick rating or review helps more Hoops fans discover the show. And you can now see us on our brand new YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe there. Shoot us an email at women'shoops@odyssey.com to tell us what's on your mind. We want to hear your hottest takes, your burning questions, and all your feelings about all things women's hoops. We just might feature your note on the show. That's women'shoops@odyssey.com. The Women's Hoop Show is an Odyssey original podcast hosted by me, Jordan Robinson. Our producer is Phil Switek. Our video team is led by Kurt Courtney and includes Tim Meikle, Evan Cox, Allison Jeffrey, and Lauren Vieira. Our executive producers are Greg Holtzman, Asha Saluja, Danny Freisinger, Maddie Sprunkaiser, and Leah Reese-Dennis. And special thanks to Moira Curran and Josephina Francis.